as we process. Thank you very much for your patience, everyone. I would like to quickly introduce myself. I've already met some of you, but for those who don't know me, my name is Yun Chen. I am an educational developer at Center for Teaching and Learning. My portfolio includes programming to support globalization of courses, programs, and curriculum in general. And part of that involves initiating conversations within our teaching community to discuss how we can work individually and collaboratively as an institution to support international and culturally diverse students in their academic journey here at Queen's. So a little bit about my background. I am originally from China, and I speak Mandarin as my first language and speak English as my second. I moved over to Canada in 2012 as an international student and became a Canadian permanent resident in 2018. My lived experience inspired me to delve into the challenges encountered by students from diverse cultural, linguistic, and educational backgrounds, whereby I embarked on my journey to study cultural diversity, specifically in higher education. So I'm very excited to have you all in the session today, and we have a small and cozy group today. I look forward to discussing this topic with you, and I have no doubt you bring into the session your expertise and experience supporting international students in the online environment. I hope to engage you as much as I can in the session today so we could all learn from each other. Please feel free to ask questions, share your opinions, or making comments at any time during the session. If you feel comfortable, please feel free to raise your virtual hands. I'll invite you to share verbally, or if you prefer to just use a live chat, I would highly encourage you to do so we can all communicating with each other. So let me move on to the next slide. To welcome you to the session, I would like to firstly make a land acknowledgement that Queen's University is situated on traditional Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee territory. I moved over to Kalaraki, I hope I'm pronouncing this one correctly, the city of Kingston in the summer, just a few months ago as an immigrant settler. Although I'm still exploring this land, I have grown appreciation of the four directions teaching originated in the Haudenosaunee territory that guides us to cover the four essential aspects of teaching and learning in terms of emotional, physical, mental, and spirituality. As I come from a cultural background where holism is also valued and respected, I feel related to this teaching when I just learned about it. Okay, as a newcomer to this land and to our community, I look forward to further learning from this land and from Indigenous peoples. A few housekeeping issues before we officially go into the session. This session today serves as an introduction and overview of the topic due to the time limitation. An hour and a half is a very short time for us to address such a broad but also complicated topic. Therefore, I would like to encourage all of us to continue exploring this topic to find our own best practice in supporting international and culturally diverse students in the online setting. Okay, so you will notice as we process that some of the challenges we're about to explore may not be unique to international students, but may be shared by other diverse groups, such as the first generation college students, students from diverse high school experiences, Francophone students, or students from Indigenous communities, and we can all name a few. Okay, I guess the goal of the session really is to initiate a conversation to discuss how to help all students who are struggling in online learning achieve success. So at the end of the session, you will have access to the PowerPoint, so you don't need to worry about writing down all the notes or anything. and we can engage more with each other. My colleague Caitlin will send out a follow-up email with the PowerPoint and the evaluation form, so I can get some constructive feedback from you that will help me do better in my next offering of the session and in the future programming. And also, I would like to propose a community guideline or community agreement that hopefully will help you feel safe and welcome in a session, and also creates an accountable space where we feel comfortable communicating with each other and feel encouraged to engage with one another. I think it is important that we hold space for each other to be silent, to question, to engage, to speak up or step back as needed, and respect each other's journeys and remind ourselves that we all receive and share teachings or knowledges in different ways. And it's also important we listen generously and maintain confidentiality and trust. Okay, so I wonder if there is any other commitments or guidelines that need to be added to the list here to make you feel comfortable and welcome. I'm gonna pause for a quick second to see if you have any thoughts in terms of the community guideline. Okay, it seems we're good at this point, so we can move on. If you think of anything, like I said, questions, comments, please feel free to share at any time. I look forward to learning from you as well. Okay, so at the very beginning of the session, I would like to share a piece of news with you that happened earlier this year. I will pause for a few minutes for you to do the reading. Okay, some of you might have already heard about this news, so please take a quick moment to refresh your memory. When you finish reading, please put the green check mark on your screen to let me know that you've done the reading. You will find the green check mark in the reactions at the bottom of the screen. So I'll mute myself and let you do the reading for a few minutes. Okay, I've noticed most of you have done the reading already, so I'll leave another few seconds for the rest of us to wrap up. And there's also a question in the chat wondering if the instructor still teaches. Based on the news, it says the instructor was removed from the course, but I'm not sure if he or she is still teaching at your university? Okay, it seems a lot of us have already done the reading. So I'm pretty sure we have some thoughts and feelings going on after read what's in the news. Let's spend a few minutes to talk about it. Okay, so I'm wondering, what do you think might be the reasons why this instructor replied inappropriately to the student's request of exam deferral? So I have a few thoughts myself, but I would like to hear from you. What do you think might be the reasons? Okay, if you feel comfortable, I highly encourage you to raise your hand and share verbally. If not, please feel free to share some thoughts in the chat.
I will share something.
Thank you, Jason.
Adam.
Oh, sorry, Adam.
So the first thing that comes to my head is when I read this is like the lack of training that this instructor may have been given, or a poor management of the program. This is the first two things that come to my head.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I agree.
No problem.
Yeah. So how about others in the group today? What do you think might be the reasons? That this inappropriate response happened? Okay, so there is a comment in the chat. Holly says, willful ignorance of what is happening in the world and the racism. Yes, I agree. Because racism comes in different forms. It could be intentional or intentional. So thank you so much for sharing, Holly. I would also thinking maybe there's a level of lack of empathy or lack of compassion with what is going on in other people's life of living. Okay, so Karen says here, instructors are dealing with a lot of requests, and it might be that this one was treated without much thought. So there might be just a response on the spot without thinking further into what might be challenging the students. So that could be one reason as well, because we're not the instructor. We don't know what caused this response to happen, but I'm just trying to, see what do you think might be the reasons? Because the focus of our session today is the online course in the online context. So there's lack of in-person, sometimes communication interactions. So we might be encounter some situations, there will be requests from our students that seems not, we might not be willing to respond, or we might not be willing to defer our exam just out of one request. So there might be some situations we need to handle in the online context. Okay, Jordan says here, concerns about the ripple effects to other students asking for deferrals, although not a justified reason in his opinion. Yes. So there might be a lot of reasons underneath why this inappropriate response happened. And I was actually shocked what I was reading this news, and I guess what shocked me the most is when the instructor wrote, by the way, your remarks both related to this course and to your home country made me wonder how you understand reality. People don't just get shot for protesting, but for a lot deeper reasons. Okay, so while in fact people did get shot by protesting around the world, including in North American countries. So from my perspective, please feel free to disagree. I think this instructor is thinking and talking in their own privilege and is biased against the students' living experience. Okay. Reading this news also reminded me that we could all be biased in different ways at different levels. Therefore, I think I would like to spend a few minutes to quickly talk about implicit bias that has a great impact on our academic and non-academic conduct. Okay, so here is one quick definition. The attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an implicit manner, activated involuntarily without awareness or intentional control. Everyone is susceptible. Okay, so basically speaking, implicit bias is reflected in our unconscious thoughts and assumptions that are derived from our past experience, such as information from social media or attitudes assimilated from close family or friends, etc. And even though we oftentimes are not aware of implicit bias, it motivates our thoughts, actions, and reactions. And regardless of who we are all susceptible to the effects of implicit bias. Okay, so I think maybe one reason why the inappropriate response happened is due to the implicit bias the instructor is holding while he's teaching in this course. Okay, we won't go more in depth, but just sharing the definition. If you are interested in learning more about implicit biases, here are some resources for reference. So the Harvard Implicit Association tests are very helpful in identifying the biases we may have as educators and as individuals. And there is also some learning modules developed by the Human Rights and Equity Office for us to take. Okay, so you will be getting this PowerPoint, so you will have the link for you to use. Unfortunately, I only read the news from CBC. There is no more information released in terms of what the course was about or the subjects. I guess we can't really find those information. Sorry, Karen. So moving on to our next quick discussion together here. Because we might be all biased at different levels in different ways. So I'm wondering, what do you think might be the implicit biases we as instructors may have when we're teaching an online course? Okay, so once again, I would highly encourage you to raise your virtual hands to share verbally. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, please feel free to use the live chat. I also have a few thoughts myself, but I want to hear from you first. So what implicit biases we may have when we are teaching an online course? Okay, I'm gonna mute myself and let you think about it. Okay, I can see in the chat, Karen's sharing a few examples. Thank you so much. So all students are from Canada, yes. When we don't see them, when they turn off their camera or there's no synchronous session involved in our online teaching, we may assume, yeah, they all come from the same background. Yeah, that's a very good example. Thank you so much. And all students are between the age of 18 to 20. Sometimes we might not know, we may have senior citizens, or we may have more mature adults in our classes. Exactly. And another example is all speak perfect English. Yes, thank you so much. Adam saying, I see cultural isolation. Can you speak a little bit more about that, Adam? What do you mean by cultural isolation? If you don't mind, if you feel comfortable.
Some instructors, and I have seen this from my teaching experience for 22 years, they assume or like like don't, by not understanding or doing the enough research about where is the student coming from, they assume that they will come here and land in Canada and knowing everything. So this will put a pressure on the students, and they will isolate them in a way that they will feel that they need to be a group with students who are coming from the same place so that they will feel more comfortable, rather than just making sure that uh, they are going to be with other groups to learn from them. So this will the students will experience something like this based on the instructors not understanding where is the student coming from. Of course, some instructors.
Okay, thank you so much, Adam, for the explanation. I agree, because I'm interested in cultural diversity. So I can see that sometimes when we don't see our students face to face, like also Karen shared, we assume everybody's from the same backgrounds. And even if we notice they may come from different backgrounds, we may not always able to make the connection between how that will impact our students in their learning process if they come from a different cultural background. Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Unfortunately, Jordan's not going to share verbally because he's in a shared space. But one example he provided is all students can learn different materials, reading, lecturing equally, and have access to technology that we are excited to integrate into our course. Exactly. Thank you so much for sharing. And Holly was sharing in the news, the subject the instructor taught was mathematics. Okay, I wasn't able to find that information. Thank you so much for sharing, Holly. And another implicit bias, which is an easy one, is sometimes when we invite students to turn on their web camera, and they don't want to do it, we may wonder, oh, are you really focusing on my teaching here? Or are you simply playing with Facebook? Or are you distracted by other stuff? They might just not feel comfortable at that moment to turn on the camera, or if it's being recorded, or if they just have like a Zoom fatigue. I'm pretty sure we all kind of share that kind of like a Zoom fatigue being online for so long. Okay, thank you so much for the engagement and for your contribution to this quick activity. Let's move on to the next part. So I guess to help international and many other students we have in our class, it is important for us to combat our implicit bias, okay? And it happens sometimes that we may assume what makes sense to us would automatically make sense to students, regardless of their backgrounds or educational experiences. For example, our students may have no problem understanding the structure of the lesson, or they should all appreciate the active learning strategies we incorporated in the class. But in reality, their understanding might not in line with what we expect them to understand. So very often, our perception becomes the truth, air quotes, okay? The so-called truth is self-limiting, and it provides us with a tunnel vision that we cannot see how things may work out in a different way, nor we try to shift the script we try to shift the perspective or flip the script. So this kinds of implicit biases may become barriers in our students' learning process. By uncovering some of our implicit biases, it is more likely for us to become conscious and avoid falling into the pitfalls as much as possible. And it's also important for us to understand that combating with implicit bias is going to be an ongoing fight that requires us to constantly self-reflection or self-reminding. And we're all in this together. We have to also remind ourselves or remind each other sometimes. So to combat implicit biases to support international or culturally diverse students, there are a few initial steps we can take. And one important step is for us to understand the unique challenges faced by international students. And then when we realize their challenges, we would provide additional support to help the students overcome some of the challenges. So in the session today, we're going to complete the two tasks. First of all, we're going to explore their challenges. And secondly, we're going to identify some teaching strategies that will be helpful to support our students. So those are also the learning outcomes of today's session. Explore the anticipated challenges, identify educational strategy for our specific, disciplinary area or academic context. And hopefully, after we leave the session today, we all feel inspired to implement one or two new strategies to support international and our students in their online learning. Okay. So the first task is to explore the anticipated challenges. So maybe we can all imagine if we are taking an online course in a different country, and where English will not be used or your first language will not be used. So what might be the challenges we will be facing learning online in that course? Okay, if this helps. Okay, so I would like to invite you to go to Mentimeters. If you can use your smartphone, you can scan the QR code, or if you are using a laptop, please feel free to visit www.menti.com and enter the code 13562224. My colleague Sandra also shared the link and code in the chat for your convenience. So I will be pausing my screen share to switch over to the activity. Just give me one quick second. Okay, I hope you are able to see the Mentimeter screen. So the same question, let's suppose, if we were taking an online course in a country where our first language is not spoken, what might be the challenges we will encounter in that specific learning context? It's not as specific as, because there's no, country or anything, but just trying to imagine what will be the challenges or barriers we might be encountering learning in that context. Okay. Oops. Sorry. Time zone differences when joining classes via Zoom or submitting assignments on a deadline. Yes, because there is a 13-hour time difference between Canada and my hometown. So it's very challenging for me to even talk to my family from time to time, not to mention, if I go back and have a class in Canada, it will be really challenging. Thank you for sharing. Lacking sense of community, no peer support, keep up with the pace of the course. Exactly. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. It's really hard to develop a sense of community when, there's no in-person connection. We don't see each other. Because right now I feel like I'm talking to my laptop. I know you're all there, but not seeing you makes me feel a bit lonely as well. Ability to access some resources, YouTube, Google in some countries. Exactly. Thank you for sharing. Because I know whenever I go back to China, I won't have access to YouTube, Google, Instagram, Facebook, many other social media we use here in Canada, unless I pay for a special VPI service. Okay, time differences from synchronous learning, access to reliable internet, support with language barriers, challenges. Exactly. Thank you so much for sharing. Internet access. Yeah, we even experience, unstable internet using the Queen's Wi-Fi service or internet service. So if we are trying to connect in another country, it's also very possible we have this challenge. It's either low bandwidth or very unstable connection, technological challenges, time zone differences, challenge with the space of study, interruptions, noise, family at home. Yes, exactly. Thank you for sharing. Balancing responsibility. So some of our students may not just focus on study, they have to work to make their living. They might need to pay for their own tuition fee. So they are in responsibility of making money, and they may have family. They need to help. So, if we only consider their role as a student, then we're ignoring there are many other roles they're playing in life. Okay, there's also language, self-identity, cultural, working groups, English idioms. Yes, that still gets me from time to time. I mean, I should say most of the time. Overly complex language or use of idioms. Understanding what the instructors say sometimes is a big problem, either because the technology fails or the instructor talks in a low voice or does not articulate very clearly. Yes, when we are meeting online, I'm pretty sure we can all relate to this. The communication is extremely challenging. I recall one experience when I meet with people in person for the first time for a meeting in a cafeteria. We're all wearing our masks on. I barely follow the conversation. I can't read their lips. And as a language learner, it's important for me to be able to read people's lips to understand what they're talking about. So I was struggling so much in that meeting. Okay, thank you so much for sharing. I'll be sharing the slides with you together with my PowerPoint. Just give me one quick second to go back to my PowerPoint to continue our conversation. Okay, so hopefully I've made a successful transition back to my PowerPoint, and it's time for us to move on to the next part. Anticipated challenges in online learning. So due to time limitation we have in the session, we can't possibly talk about all the challenges international students are facing. So I categorized some major challenges into 3 groups for our reference. The first category is unfamiliarity, okay, due to disorientation, overwhelmingness, or technical skills. Okay, I'm pretty sure you covered most of those challenges. Just put them together in a more structured way. Okay, the second category is invisibility, derived from language barrier and disengagement. And the last one is inaccessibility caused by time differences, as we already identified in the activity. And the time differences impact our students in communication or response, in the resources they have, and the support they can get. Okay, so I would like to reiterate that many other students we have in our class may share some of the challenges. They are not unique to international students, but when we are talking about supporting international students, we're trying to support all students who are struggling in online learning. Okay, so I will spend a few minutes to go a little bit in depth with each challenge. So some international students feel disoriented in an online course because they might have not yet experienced online learning in their previous educational experiences. Now, when we're like over a year into COVID, it's less likely that our students haven't experienced online learning, but it's hard to know, right? There's still possibility that they haven't experienced online learning, especially the newly admitted first-year students who might not have any clue in terms of what an online course may look like. Meanwhile, we could have other international students who already taken a few online courses, either at Queen's or in a different institution, so they understand online setting a bit better. Therefore, there is a chance that the international students we have in our classroom have different levels of experiences in online course, and some may require more preparation and guidance than others. Another reason is it's also possible that each one of us is teaching online course differently. We may have different expectations and different requirements. Some of us some of us have like a synchronous session and asynchronous session all together. Some of us may only have synchronous session. Some of us may only have asynchronous session. So there's a wide spectrum of combination how we're teaching online. So even if our international students have taken a few online courses before, they may still feel disoriented in a new course, especially at the very beginning of the course. So it is still essential for us to help them understand the structure of the course, your expectations, to demystify the course, to help them learn effectively in our own specific context. Okay. So international students may also have trouble navigating an online course due to the lack of direct and detailed instructions from instructors compared with face-to-face courses. Okay, and this could also be culturally dependent. In some cultures, education is mostly teacher-centered and examination-oriented. In that context, teachers are oftentimes have absolute authority and are believed as the primary source and resource for learning. Therefore, the lectures are often highly structured. The teachers often tell students exactly what to do in each class. So some of our international students may come from that kind of learning experience. So they are used to getting specific instructions from their teachers and are used to be told what to do. Therefore, they may feel overwhelmed in a learning context where instructors' presence is compromised and they need to depend on themselves for directions, especially in this fully asynchronous classes. They may not know where to begin and how to guide themselves in the learning process, therefore feeling confused and overwhelmed. Okay. And another reason I want to share is, I think I've already quickly alluded. Some international students may believe they can only learn from their teachers or instructors rather than from doing a reading or having a discussion with peers. Sometimes we may feel that there's no need for us to interact with students as much in the online course because they can learn at their own pace, or they can learn from each other through the learning activities we gave them or doing group assignments. But some international students may interpret this as we are not doing our jobs as instructors, and they believe they can't learn much from this course because we are not involved as much in this asynchronous setting. Okay, so I've quickly shared two challenges. And here is the third one under unfamiliarity, the tech issues we've already realized or we've already experienced. Because online learning is often shaped by a complex interaction of technical and technological factors, as we identified in the activity, so which will impact students in their learning experience and success. So I think we all know this, that international students are different in their technical skills and their ability in terms of how to use the technology. They might have little or limited knowledge of the learning management system we're using, for example, Unqu, or they might not familiar with many other technological tools we use in the online course, such as the feedback flutes, or we can name a few, okay? So they may be struggling a little bit and they find it challenging to engage in the learning process or complete assignments, okay? So this is also where our implicit biases may easily kick off. We may assume everyone should have no problem using this tool or that application because we're so familiar with them ourselves. We forget others may not share the same experience with us. So some of our students may not feel the same. They might be in need of more support and guidance. Okay, so this is something about unfamiliarity. Before we go into another category, I want to pause quickly here to see if you have a question or comments to share, if you need clarifications. Okay, Jordan is asking any advice on helping students become more independent in online course. Thank you so much for the question. I'm going to save this for later because we will be talking about strategy quickly after we explore their challenges. Okay, thank you so much for your patience. We will do that later. Okay, thank you. But thank you for the question. I want to hear from you. I want to know if you have questions or if you have something to share with us, because I feel like I'm the only one who's talking today. That makes me feel a little bit lonely. The other category is about invisibility and language barrier. I think we could all agree that this is not a new challenge to international students, especially the non-native English speakers, and I am one of them. Okay, so in an online course, it remains the major challenge we as educators need to be attuned. Okay, so as international students need to depend more on themselves in an online course, in a general concept, to figure things out and solve problems when they occur. They struggle more in their learning process with inadequate language competency. Therefore, I believe it is fair for me to say that inadequate language competency tend to magnify many other academic problems in an online course. And a language barrier, unfortunately, is going to be a long-term challenge. I would hope there will be magic pills whenever I take them. I will be able to speak English as perfectly, but that's not going to happen. It also takes the students and instructors to work together to help students to keep developing their English language ability while they're learning the new skills or knowledge in our subject field. Okay, and also language barriers often detract non-native English speakers from equal participation, and I'll explain more about this in the next topic of disengagement. Okay, I also believe invisibility is a long-standing challenge for international students and for many diverse student populations. In an online course, it is likely to be magnified or amplified and become more prominent. Okay, similar to what we have just discussed, some international students struggle to participate in discussions or many other activities we planned for our class because they sometimes struggle to fully express themselves when they speak English as an additional language. They often don't feel confident or comfortable speaking up, particularly in an immediate manner. Okay, they may appreciate some buffer time to organize their thoughts or even search for vocabulary. And it actually helps if the discussion is in a written format and is in an asynchronous setting where the students have more time to ponder over their thoughts as well as polish their use of language. The downside is it takes more time. So for international students, it will be easily for them to take twice or even triple amount of the time to finish the reading or complete the task or assignments. I'm speaking from my lived experience as well as the journals I've read previously. And also just to share within our group today, I still feel strongly related to this challenge, even if I've lived in Canada for many years. There is still a sacred worry I have that my eligibility and capability as an educational developer may be questioned if I'm not able to speak English at an advanced level. Sometimes when I'm tired, I start to speak English in a way that's hard to be understood, or I start to forget about the vocabulary. So I'm still not good at improvising while I'm making public speech. And whenever I begin my workshop, I feel nervous a little bit to make sure, I'm calm and I will be able to express myself at the best level I could. And another thing I want to share with you is Some international students, as we previously discussed, they believe they can only learn from the instructor. They often feel reluctant to participate in peer-based activities as they don't consider it a way of learning unless we clearly explain the reasons and values. We tell them, it's going to help you learn in this and that way. Sometimes they understand the value of these activities, but they might not know how to participate in the activities. Maybe previously they're going through different learning styles. Therefore, they haven't had a chance to practice or develop some associated skills required by these activities. Okay, there is going to be a learning curve ahead of them. And also, I've read in many journals, a lot of researchers revealed in their studies that international students often feel a sense of marginalization or alienation learning in our context because their cultural and educational backgrounds are not reflected in the curriculum nor in a learning process. It's online or in person. Therefore, international students may feel their prior knowledge, their experiences are not relevant or not important. Thus, they don't see the value of sharing their opinions or participating in discussions. And also their disengagement sometimes is their reaction to discriminations, inequity, and unfairness that emerged in their learning process. So basically speaking, international students, some of them and many other diverse students are very invisible in the face-to-face classes. And I think they're even more invisible when it's online, especially in the asynchronous setting. Okay, so that's my sharing of the second category. I wonder if any one of you have anything to share, maybe your personal story or maybe your thoughts, maybe your question in terms of invisibility. Okay, Jason, do you have anything you would like to share? Please go ahead.
Just one thing, like with the language barriers and stuff, obviously if English is not your first language, that's a barrier there. But sometimes, like, I studied in the US, I was an international student in the US. And I remember English is my first language, but because you have this accent, you kind of concerned that they can't understand you. And so it impedes you as well. So that's another lens to look at language barriers is also the accents and so on.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jason. You made a really good point that we have many international students who speak English as their first language, and because they have a different accent, they're also considered as language learners as well. Thank you so much. That's an important point. I feel comfortable sharing because we have a small and cozy group, and I think because I was an international student myself, I think I have the lived experience to share with you. So thank you for also sharing your thoughts with me. Okay, so let's move on to the next category, the inaccessibility. I think we've already covered a lot of this barrier in the activity, so I'll be very quick with this one. So because of time differences, the communication might be challenging. There will always be delay in response. And also another issue will be misinterpretation through written communication. Okay, I believe we can all relate to this in terms of having a conversation using either text messages or emails. It feels more challenging to interpret the intentions without access to facial expressions or body languages. It's more possible that we interpret some messages wrong as the tone we use in our heads while reading the message might not be the one used by our interlocutor, especially when they are from different cultural, educational, and linguistic backgrounds. Okay. So in terms of content and resources, you've already mentioned this. So I'm not going to reiterate. Just to keep this in mind, if we are using certain websites or application as content holder, for example, Google Documents, or like use YouTube videos, it's possible that some of our students may not be able to access those contents unless they pay extra fee for it or just don't have access to it. Okay, and in terms of support and help, in general, based on our research studies, to be successful in an online course, our students will need at least technical support or technical help or academic help, okay, to be able to follow up in the process. There are also many other helps they need to be successful. For example, mental wellness. We are into this crazy world because of COVID, and a lot of our students suffered from depression, isolation, loneliness. Some of them choose to move back to their home country because they can't handle what's going on by themselves. So we need to provide them extra support, if not from us, maybe refer them to our colleagues through the campus services we have to help our students feel they are able to put this together. We're all in this together. I'm here to support. So those are important messages we need to deliver over to our students. Okay. So not resigning in Canada makes it harder for international students to access the support we offer on campus. So that's why it's a challenge. This also could be an issue that involves cultural and many other influential factors like gender, age, we can all name a few. Some students feel reluctant to ask for help, or how they ask for help and who they would like to approach might be very different than how we expect them to do. Okay, so therefore it requires us to encourage our students, but also try to get to know them a little bit better to understand how can we best support them. Okay, and another thing is we might need to provide like a multiple access to one resource. For example, maybe through phone numbers or maybe emails, or if applicable, maybe the live chats on the website would be a good tool for students to use the services as instructors. Maybe we can provide them different information for them to connect with you, but also if you have already a very busy schedule, you can tell them, this is my primary contact information. If you access other contact information, there's a chance I might not be able to respond to you right away. So just try to build a communication with your students and share with them how can they best approach you. Okay, will be some general strategy before going into a strategy piece. So I've been talking a lot. Before I let you do another quick activity, I just want to once again quickly summarize a few initial steps we can take to help our students overcome some of the challenges. I guess being aware that diversity in cultural, linguistic, and educational backgrounds does impact our students in their learning experience and learning success is one stepping stone towards building culturally responsive and inclusive practice. The awareness also helps us combat our implicit biases and practice educational equity. Okay, I understand that cultural diversity is not the only reason for the challenges our students experience learning our context, but I would say cultural diversity is one major challenge or major influential factor that needs our attention. I also would like to acknowledge that it will be unreasonable or unrealistic to suggest the discussed challenges can be completely anticipated or eliminated in any one online course we're offering. It's just not going to be possible. Instead, we need to all begin with some small changes at a time, maybe change one thing in one course, and the changes we make will lead to big results. I'm positive that international students will appreciate efforts we put in to support them. I know I did as an international student myself. So it's important to also reiterate that the goal of the session is to provide an opportunity for us to have a conversation and also identify some strategies that may work the best for our own contexts. Okay, to help students overcome some of the discussed challenges, we need to change unfamiliarity to familiarity, invisibility to visibility, and the same from inaccessibility to accessibility. A few initial steps as the beginners. Okay, so to develop familiarity, we can begin with establishing orientation from the outset, building navigation all the way through the course, integrating technical considerations as much as possible. So for visibility, it helps if we increase our meaningful presence in the online course, encourage students' engagement even in asynchronous settings, and also try to bridge language barriers as much as we could. Accessibility will be just be mindful of time differences in terms of communication, resource contents, and support. Okay, so I've done a lot of talking and I want to hand the floor back to you now to do a quick digital gallery walk. So what we'll need to do is to brainstorm a few strategies according to the 7 initial steps. Okay, so what I invite you to do is to visit a Google Jamboard. My colleague Sandra already shared the link in the chat for you to access. So there are 7 pages on the Google Jamboard. Each page addresses one of the initial steps I listed here. So we will need to brainstorm and post at least one strategy per page. So for example, on page 1, we brainstorm and post one strategy in terms of establishing orientation. And on page 2, we post one strategy about building navigation. So eventually, we will post 7 strategies, one strategy per page. Okay, I hope I fully expressed myself. So I also encourage us to begin with a random number. If we all begin with number 1, then there might be a traffic jam on page 1 of the Google document. So please try the link and see if it's accessible, and let me know if you have any questions or if you need help access this Google documents. Google Jamboard. We have about 7-8 minutes for this activity, and we'll come back as a big group to share. Okay, so I'll mute myself and let you do the activity. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I want to say you contributed so many great strategies for us to choose from. I want to get your attention back to my PowerPoint. Let's carry on our conversation. So before I offer you a chance to discuss with each other what strategy you might think you want to try in your own practice, I wanted to quickly also shamelessly plug for my position. As an educational developer, I offer consultation both at individual and departmental levels. I do develop resources, I offer workshops, and I also conduct class observations in the following topics and beyond: program and curriculum globalization, culturally responsive pedagogy, intercultural teaching competence, decolonization and educational equity, culture diversity in academic writing, academic integrity, and also collaborative online international learning, aka COIL. And also I have a big passion for supporting international and culturally diverse students. And also there's another few resources. If you think they are useful, please feel free to pass the information to your students. So SAS has developed a few resources just for students, especially international students who speak English as a second language, but everybody is welcome to use their resources. They are learning modules about online learning. They offer services and support in terms of academic stress, and they offer support to EL students. They have one-on-one appointments in terms of learning skills, academic writing skills. They have many other great support and programs there for our students to use. So hopefully you will share this information with your students to help them get extra help, because it's not our solo responsibility to support our students. Okay, so the last activity of the session is we just brainstormed so many wonderful strategies, and I also put together a document with more strategies for you to choose from. So what we will do is you will access two documents. My colleague Sandra is sharing the link in the chat. You will have access to a PDF document, which is the strategy I put together. And another will be a worksheet. So you can probably pick one strategy for you to use for the class you are teaching or you are about to teach. So another thing is, I would like you to have a chance to debrief with each other. So my colleague Sandra will put you in small groups of 3 or 4. So before you go into the breakout session, make sure you access the two documents, you have them. And also you can go back to the Google Jamboard for the other strategies we just brainstormed. So we will have 10 minutes for a quick discussion with each other, and we'll come back and debrief a little bit. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining me today in the session. Like I shared at the very beginning, I feel I only scratched the surface of this very complicated but also broad topic. But I'm very grateful for your participation in the workshop today. I'm new to Queens. I wanted to invite you to be my ally in the endeavor of supporting international and culturally diverse students. So if you feel interested in this topic, or if you need any support from me, I'm just one email away. I guess this comes to the end of the session today. I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I hope to see you again in another session or in another event at Queens. If you have questions or anything, I can stay longer. If not, I will see you later. We may run into each other, maybe in Starbucks or something. Please make sure to say hi. Thank you so much for coming, everyone.